The Buddhist view on happiness. Happiness is often seen as a distant goal, something that can be achieved through material possessions or social status. However, Buddhism offers us a different perspective, showing that true happiness is not found in external things, but in our ability to be at peace with ourselves. For Buddhists, happiness is fleeting and not a permanent condition. It arises naturally when we free ourselves from suffering and attachment. So, how can we achieve this? The answer lies in self-awareness and the practice of living simply and mindfully. The Buddha taught us that suffering is an intrinsic part of life, but that we can overcome it through detachment and acceptance. We live in a world full of desires and expectations, which keeps us trapped in a cycle of constant dissatisfaction. The secret to happiness lies in stopping the struggle against what is, and instead, accepting what is. It's not easy, of course, but it's a liberating path. One simple practice to start with is to stop seeking external validation. Try for one day, instead of looking for approval on social media or from others, to focus on your own internal satisfaction. However, achieving this state of happiness requires continuous effort. True happiness doesn't come from accumulating material goods, but from inner peace. So, instead of seeking happiness in distant places, the real journey begins within each of us. Practices such as meditation and mindfulness are powerful tools that help us cultivate this peace. Start with small steps like dedicating 10 minutes of your day to breathe deeply and experience the present moment. This simple practice can change the way you approach life, suffering, and the cycle of samsara. Suffering is one of the first lessons in Buddhism, and for many, it is a difficult truth to accept. However, understanding suffering as a natural part of life is essential for liberation from it. The concept of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, explains how we are trapped in this endless suffering. This cycle is fueled by our desires, attachments, and the belief that happiness comes from outside. But the Buddha teaches us that by understanding the impermanence of things and the root of suffering, we can break this cycle and find true freedom. It is important to understand that suffering is not something we need to avoid, but something we must learn to face with wisdom and compassion. Instead of resisting it, we can use it as an opportunity for growth. When we become attached to things or people, we create expectations that inevitably lead to pain. The key to breaking this cycle of suffering is realizing that nothing is permanent. Pain, difficulties, and even joy are transient. By understanding this truth, we become more resilient and capable of living lightly. One of the most powerful teachings Buddhism offers is the concept of non-attachment. This doesn't mean we should abandon everything we love, but that we should learn to enjoy things without clinging to them in fear of losing them. For example, in a relationship, we can deeply love someone without creating the expectation that it will last forever. By accepting impermanence, we can live the moment more intensely, without the constant fear that something good will end. This understanding can be transformative in all areas of life. The search for external happiness versus internal happiness. We live in a society that constantly tells us happiness is found in external things. Whether it's status, money, or social relationships, there is always something or someone promising to give us the feeling of fulfillment. However, Buddhism proposes that true happiness cannot be found in any of these. The incessant search for external validation only keeps us trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction and anxiety. It's like trying to find water in the desert, always chasing something that will never quench our inner thirst. Internal happiness, on the other hand, is cultivated within us. It comes from the ability to accept who we are and live authentically without depending on others' approval. When we find peace within ourselves, we become immune to the external fluctuations of life. This doesn't mean we should abandon our dreams or goals, but that we should live in alignment with our true self. By focusing on what feels good internally, we can build a life that is more fulfilling and satisfying, regardless of external circumstances. A practical example of this shift in focus can be seen in the simple act of stopping comparing our lives to others. When we stop measuring our happiness by what others have or do, we begin to appreciate what we have in the present moment. One practice that can greatly help in this process is gratitude. Instead of lamenting what's lacking, start listing the small things you are grateful for. Health, food on the table, true friendship. This practice, however simple it may seem, has the power to transform our view of happiness and show us that in reality, we are much happier than we think. The Buddhist view of compassion and detachment. Happiness is often seen as one of the most fundamental virtues, something that can be achieved through material possessions or social status. Any spiritual practice that leads to true Buddhism happiness offers us a different perspective. We often associate true happiness only with found in external things or mercy, in our ability to Buddhism be at peace with ourselves. Compassion is more than that. For Buddhists, it is happiness an active fleeting of placing and not a permanent condition. And it arises naturally when we free ourselves from suffering and attachment. By practicing compassion, how can we not only help others, but the answer lies in self-awareness and the practice of living and needs. And this process creates the Buddha taught us that suffering is an intrinsic part of life for us and for others, that we can overcome it through detachment. Is a teaching that is often misunderstood. We live in a world full of desires and expectations, does not mean losing love, which keeps us trapped in a cycle of constant dissatisfaction. Oneself from excessive the secret control to happiness lies in stopping the struggle against what is. When we detach, and instead we stop fighting against the natural flow of life. It's not easy, of course. This allows us to live more lightly. One simple practice to start with, for example, is to stop seeking. You can strive to do your best and try for one day. But instead of looking for your entire social media or from others, when we detach from the need focus for on your own internal satisfaction at any cost, however, we find a space achieving this state of happiness requires in many situations. True happiness doesn't come also from directly related to how we deal with our own inner peace. By realizing that our instead of seeking happiness in distant and places, that we don't need to identify the real journey begins. We can live with more serenity. Imagine a situation where someone deeply irritates powerful tools instead of reacting impulsively and fueling the anger. Start with small steps. You can choose to respond 10 minutes of your day, knowing that anger is just a passing emotion, and experience this type of emotional control. This simple is a direct reflection the way you approach life. Practice in detachment and the cycle of samsara. Happiness, suffering is one of the first lessons in Buddhism. And have you ever stopped to think that the happiness you are searching for might be much closer than you think? Understanding suffering, the world around you with all its hustle, consumption, and search for liberation from it has been distorting what truly matters. The cycle of birth, makes us happy, death, and rebirth. The latest phone model explains how we are dream vacation in this endless temporary distraction. This cycle is something that disappears as soon as the initial and the belief that happiness comes from outside. That instead of Buddha teaches us that by understanding everything you need within yourself, the root of suffering, true happiness, we can break this cycle not in what you possess, but in who you are. It is important to understand that's the big suffering is not something happiness comes from within, but something we must learn to face just a reflection and compassion. Instead of resisting the way you look at yourself, we can use it as an opportunity for growth and makes you truly happy. Attached to things, the world around you will change. We create expectations that inevitably lead to pain. Most people live an entire life searching for something that never comes, realizing that they are looking in the wrong place. What if instead of chasing something joy are transient? You began to understanding this truth. What really matters, we become more resilient, and the best part, capable of living. What if you could start right now? One of the most powerful teachings Buddhism offers is the concept. In this video, we will explore together. This doesn't mean we should abandon everything cultivated from within, but that we should learn to enjoy things. Buddhist practices can transform your life in a profound way. For example, get In a
ready
relationship,
to understand a concept,
we can
that
deeply
might
love
change
someone without
everything you thought
creating
about
the
happiness.
expectation that it will
Now
last
that
forever.
you understand
By
how
accepting
true
happiness
impermanence
doesn't depend
we
on
can
what you
live the
have,
moment more
but on
intensely,
who you are,
without the
the
constant
next step
fear that
is to
something
put
good
this
will
knowledge
end.
into practice.
This understanding
Are you willing
can be
to live more
transformative
lightly,
in all
detached,
areas of
and
life.
full of compassion?
The search for
Have you
external
thought about
happiness
how your life
versus
could be
internal
transformed by
happiness?
freeing
We
yourself
live in a
from
society
external
that
expectations
constantly tells us
and focusing on
happiness
what
is
truly
found in
matters?
external things.
Happiness is
whether
within
it's
your
status,
reach,
money,
and it
or
starts with
social
small
relationships.
adjustments.
There
in your
is
daily
always
life.
something or
How
someone
about
promising
starting now?
to give us the feeling of
Breathe
fulfillment.
deeply.
However,
Observe your thoughts.
Buddhism
And
proposes
choose
that
to
true
detach
happiness
from the external
cannot be
pressures
found
you've
in
placed
any of
upon
these.
yourself.
The incessant
Remember,
search
by
for external
applying these
validation
practices,
only keeps
you
us
are not
trapped
only
in a
moving
cycle
closer to
of
true
dissatisfaction,
happiness,
but also
and
creating
anxiety.
a positive
It's like
impact
trying to find
in the
water
lives
in
of
the
those
desert.
around you. Always
Compassion
chasing
and
something that will
detachment
never
are
quench
not
our inner
just tools
thirst.
for your personal
Internal
well-being,
happiness, on
but
the other hand,
also for improving
is
relationships
cultivated within us,
and
it comes
how
from
you
the ability
interact
to
with the
accept
world.
who we are.
Now,
and
imagine
live
how
authentically
different your life
without
could be
depending
if you
on
started
others'
making
approval.
these teachings
When we
a constant
find
part of your
peace
day.
within ourselves,
You have the power
we
to
become
change your
immune
reality
to the external
All it
fluctuations
takes
of
is the
life.
decision to live
This doesn't
according
mean
to
we
what
should
you've
abandon
learned.
our dreams
If you
or
are ready to
goals,
take this
but
step,
that we should live in
subscribe
alignment
to the
with
channel
our true
and
self.
activate
By
notifications to
focusing
continue
on
learning
what
about
feels
these
good
powerful
internally,
concepts.
we can
Share
build a
your
life that is
experiences in
more
the comments,
fulfilling
because
and
together
satisfying.
we can create
Regardless
a journey
of external
transformation
circumstances,
that goes
a
far
practical
beyond
example of
what
this
we
shift in
imagine.
focus
Let's
can
begin.
be seen in the
True
simple
happiness
act
is waiting
of
for you.
stopping comparing our lives to others. When we stop measuring our happiness by what others have or do, we begin to appreciate what we have in the present moment. One practice that can greatly help in this process is gratitude. Instead of lamenting what's lacking, start listing the small things you are grateful for. Health, food on the table, true friendship. This practice, however simple it may seem, has the power to transform our view of happiness and show us that in reality, we are much happier than we think.